On Thanksgiving, my sister yelled, "You've got extra rooms, we're taking them." When I said no, she hurled her drink at me. Mom screamed, "You're no child of mine." I dabbed my face, stood up calmly and left. That night I cut them off my credit card. By morning my phone was bursting with 42 missed calls. This Thanksgiving was the beginning of the end of my relationship with my mother and her golden child, Abby. It wasn't one explosive moment that caused it, not exactly. It was the day every lie, every manipulation, and every unspoken resentment finally showed itself in daylight. I guess I should have seen it coming, but I didn't think they'd actually cross the line they did. For years I played the role they built for me. The dependable one, the one who paid the bills, who never said no. When Dad's hours got cut and Mom's health bills piled up, I stepped in. When Abby needed money for school, I paid her tuition. When she couldn't afford rent, I let her use my credit card. Everyone called me responsible, but what they really meant was useful. Abby was the opposite. Charming, careless, and somehow always the victim. She changed majors like outfits, quit part-time jobs after a week, and treated college student like a lifelong identity. Mom worshipped her. She'd say Abby just needed support, and that I should be proud to help. Proud. That word still makes my stomach turn. Thanksgiving was always at my house. My kitchen, my groceries, my dishes, my money. This time I was already exhausted before anyone even arrived. The day before, Abby sent a text that read, "Ben and I are coming early. His cousins might stay over too. You've got space, right?" No question mark. No, please. Just assumption. I answered, "No. It's not happening this year." She showed up anyway. For people piled into my living room like they owned the place. Abby's voice carried from the hallway. She was already complaining that one of the guest rooms had boxes in it. "You've got extra rooms," she said, loud and casual. "We're taking them." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain. I just said no. The room went quiet and I saw the flicker in Mom's eyes, the one that always came before she turned on me. She walked in from the kitchen, drying her hands, and said the same thing she said my entire life whenever Abby was involved. "Jane, don't be difficult. It's family." That word, family, was always their shield. I stood there looking at all of them, feeling like I was the stranger in my own home. I said no again. That's when Abby's smile dropped. She grabbed her glass, cranberry cocktail, the kind I'd bought, and threw it right at me. Cold, sticky liquid splattered across my face and blouse. The sound of the glass hitting the counter was the only thing anyone heard for a second. Then Mom screamed, but not at her. "You're no child of mine." The room spun for a moment. Abby stood there smirking, Ben looking anywhere but at me, Mom shaking like she was the injured one. I realized then that no apology, no peace offering, no, "we didn't mean it," would ever undo what I felt in that moment. I didn't say a word. I walked to the bathroom, wiped my face, grabbed my coat, and left my own house full of people eating my food. That night, I sat in bed still smelling like cranberry and perfume, opened my banking app, and removed Abby as an authorized user from my credit card. Her balance was obscene. Flights, takeout, online orders, all paid with my hard work. I hit remove, blocked her number, and did the same to Mom's. The next morning, my phone lit up with 42 missed calls. I didn't answer a single one. Not that day. Not the day after. Not ever again. And I didn't know it yet, but that was only the beginning of how far they'd go to get back at me. After Thanksgiving, I thought they'd finally take the hint. I cut Abby off my credit card, blocked her number, and stopped answering Mom's calls. There was no drama from my side, no angry messages, no confrontation. Just silence. But they didn't stop. At first it was voicemails, long dragged-out monologues from Mom about how family should never let pride get in the way. Then texts from Abby pretending nothing happened. One of them actually said, "Hey, can I use your login for Hulu?" Ben canceled his. I didn't even respond. I was done. Or I thought I was. Then came my birthday. My friends had planned a rooftop party for me downtown. Fancy catering, open bar, music, cake. The whole thing. I hadn't wanted to do anything big after everything, but they insisted. It was supposed to be fun. A celebration of leaving all that toxicity behind. I didn't invite Abby. I didn't invite Mom. Not even out of obligation. But just like on Thanksgiving, they showed up anyway. I saw them the moment the elevator doors opened. Mom in some dramatic shawl like she was walking into a funeral. Abby right behind her, smiling like she belonged there. Everyone turned to look at me, waiting to see what I'd do. I didn't do anything. I wasn't about to give them the satisfaction of making a scene. So I nodded and went back to my table, surrounded by friends who were clearly uncomfortable. They didn't approach me right away. They made rounds, said hello to people like they were guests of honor. Then Abby came over with a gift bag and a bottle of champagne. She held it up like it was some peace offering and said, "We thought you'd want to toast to a fresh start." I took the bottle because it was easier than arguing. Abby poured it into a flute herself and handed it to me. I didn't even drink the whole thing. Maybe half. It was sweet, a little off, but I didn't think much of it. 15 minutes later, I was gripping the edge of the balcony trying to stay upright. My vision blurred. The music twisted into a muffled echo. My stomach lurched so violently I dropped my glass. I heard it shatter before I hit the ground. Next thing I remember, I was on my side, someone yelling my name, cold floor under my cheek, then nothing. I woke up in the hospital with an 4 in my arm and my dad sitting in the corner. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot. He didn't say anything at first. Just stared like he was trying to figure out if I was still real. Then he said, "They were at the party." I nodded. That was all I had the energy for. He told me the bottle had been taken by a nurse and tested. Something had been added to it. A prescription sedative that reacts badly with alcohol. The kind of thing that could cause a seizure in the wrong dosage. The kind of thing you don't just accidentally mix into a birthday toast. The next day I was still hooked up to fluids, unable to sit up without getting dizzy when Dad came back. He wasn't alone. Behind him were Mom and Abby. Both looked like they hadn't slept. Abby had mascara smudged under her eyes. Mom clutched her purse like someone was going to steal it from her. Dad said nothing. Just stepped aside. Then, in the middle of the hospital room, they both dropped to their knees. I swear it was silent for 10 full seconds. Abby mumbled, "We didn't know it would make you sick. It wasn't supposed to be like that. We just wanted to scare you a little." Mom kept saying sorry over and over like it would stick if she said it enough times. I didn't say a single word. I turned my head to the window and closed my eyes. They stayed there until the nurse walked in and asked if they were family. Dad said, "Not anymore." He made them leave. They didn't argue. They just walked out slowly like they finally realized something wasn't going to go back to normal. But the truth was, it never had been normal. And now it never would be. The hospital felt colder the second day. Not physically, just in a way I couldn't shake. I barely slept. My chest still hurt, my mouth was dry, and my body felt like it had been scraped out from the inside. But I wasn't scared anymore. I was just done. The tests confirmed what I already knew. I'd been drugged. The sedative they found in my blood wasn't some casual mistake or harmless prank. It was a deliberate, calculated thing. The kind of drug you don't just accidentally pour into a bottle of champagne. Someone planned it. And there were only 2 people who handled that bottle. No one said the words, but we all knew. I didn't cry. Not when I woke up with the 4 in my arm. Not when the doctor explained what had been in my system. Not even when Dad sat in the corner of the room with this defeated look on his face. I just listened. Quietly. Like I was watching my life from the outside. The weirdest part was that I wasn't shocked. I should have been. I was literally poisoned by my own sister. But it didn't feel like a plot twist. It felt like the final page of a story I should have closed a long time ago. My dad stayed the whole time. He didn't hover or ask questions I didn't want to answer. He just brought food I barely touched, kept my phone turned off, and sat in silence while I stared at the ceiling. He didn't know everything. Not really. He knew Abby had been living off me for a while, but he never asked how much. He didn't know about the tuition I covered, the rent I paid, the credit card that spiraled out of control while she focused on school. Mom always brushed those things off. "She's struggling, Jane. She's still finding her path." I was the path. I just didn't realize how much they were walking all over me. On the morning of the second day, my dad came in with a paper bag from a nearby deli and sat it on the table next to me. "She tried to use your card again," he said after a while. "The one you shut off. For an Uber. Guess she forgot it wouldn't work." He didn't have to tell me how he knew. He'd probably gotten a call from the bank or one of those fraud alerts. I opened my laptop, logged into my accounts, and saw it. A declined $78 charge from the night before. He was still trying. Even after the hospital, after watching me nearly collapse on the floor in front of 100 people. He didn't care. I spent the next 2 hours changing every password I had. Bank accounts. Streaming services. Amazon. Apple ID. Things I hadn't thought about in years. She still had access to more than I wanted to admit. I took it all back. Dad just watched. Didn't say much. When I finished, he reached into his coat pocket and handed me a small manila envelope. Inside were copies of the champagne label, the toxicology report, and a printout from the police. Not a full report, just notes. I looked at him. "You filed something?" "I had to," he said. "You could have died." It wasn't a dramatic statement. Just flat truth. That's what made it worse. Then he said something that made my stomach twist. "They want to see you." I didn't answer. "They're waiting outside," he added. "I told them they weren't coming in unless you agreed." Still, I didn't say a word. He didn't push. Just nodded slowly and stood up. "When you're ready, I'll take you home." We left the hospital around noon. As we pulled up to my building, I saw the car before he said anything. Mom's old gray sedan. parked crooked across two spots. Abby was in the passenger seat staring straight ahead, sunglasses on. Mom leaned on the steering wheel like she hadn't slept. "They've been here since last night," Dad said quietly. "Didn't go home." I didn't even blink. I got out of the car, grabbed my bag from the back seat and walked straight into the building without looking in their direction. I could feel them watching me. I could feel Mom's fingers probably twitching on the door handle, debating whether to run after me. He didn't. Once inside, I dropped my bag and stood in the middle of my apartment just listening to the silence. Felt different now. Like I finally owned it again. A few hours later, I called a locksmith. Told him it was urgent. He came that night. Changed all 3 locks, front door, back door, and even the garage keypad. Before he left, he asked if I wanted any copies made. I said no. 1 key was enough. Just 1. When he left, I took the old keys from the drawer. The ones Abby still had copies of, the ones Mom used when she'd show up unannounced, and threw them into the trash. They were never getting in again. There was no way back from this. For almost 2 weeks after I left the hospital, it was eerily quiet. No calls, no emails, no messages passed through Dad. At first I thought maybe, somehow, they'd finally gotten the message. I didn't believe in miracles, but the silence felt almost like one. Except it wasn't peace. It was a pause. I went back to work slowly. I told my manager I'd been sick, left out the part where the reason I'd collapsed was because someone in my family had poisoned me. Who wants to explain that? I just said I was fine now. I wore long sleeves to hide the bruises from the IVs, smiled through the meetings and tried to act normal. But at night I'd lie in bed replaying everything. The champagne glass. The look on Abby's face when she handed it to me. The way Mom watched, pretending not to. I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder what they thought would happen. That I'd collapse, everyone would rush to them for help and they'd somehow look like victims again? It was so twisted it almost didn't feel real. Then one Tuesday afternoon while I was sitting in a meeting at work, my phone buzzed with an alert. Unrecognized login attempt. Mortgage account. I dismissed it at first, thinking it was just a system glitch. But then another came in, new device access, checking account. My heart dropped. I logged in immediately and saw it. Someone had tried to sign into my financial portal using my mother's email address. The same one she'd used years ago when she helped me organize my house purchase. She still had copies of my paperwork from back then. Pay stubs, loan documents, all the things I'd stupidly left at their house for safekeeping. I called the bank. They confirmed the attempted access but said they couldn't prove who did it. Only that it matched an IP address from my mother's town. That night I called Dad. I told him everything. The login attempt, the old documents, the IP trace. He didn't even sound surprised. Just tired. "She's getting worse," he said quietly. "You know how she is when she feels shut out. She doesn't stop." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The next day he showed up at my apartment. He looked like he hadn't slept either. He handed me an envelope. A thick one, sealed but creased like he'd opened it already. "She left this on my porch last night," he said. I opened it carefully. It was a handwritten letter from Mom. 6 full pages in her looping cursive. The first 2 were standard, dramatic apologies. "I didn't raise you to hate us," and "Abby didn't mean any harm." Then the tone changed. On page 4 she wrote, "You've made this into a war, Jane. Don't act like you're the only one who can play dirty." I read that line twice. My skin went cold. I passed the letter back to Dad. He looked like he wanted to tear it in half. "She's crossed a line," he said. "She crossed it a long time ago," I replied. He stayed for a while, made tea, told me he'd talk to her. I didn't stop him, but I didn't expect it to help. Every time he tried to fix things, they just found new ways to twist the knife. 2 days later, I came home to a letter taped to my front door. It looked official, thick envelope, law firm logo in the corner. Inside, it said notice of financial claim, unauthorized use of family funds. I read it 3 times before I could even process what it meant. They were accusing me of misusing Abby's education fund. The same one I created, paid into, and managed for years. They'd actually gone to a lawyer and claimed I'd exerted financial control and restricted access to her rightful assets. It was so backwards it almost made me laugh. I called the firm listed at the bottom and asked for the lawyer named on the letter. When he came on the line, I said, "This claim is fraudulent. You'll be hearing from mine soon." Then I hung up. When I told Dad later, he looked genuinely stunned for the first time. "She filed a claim against her own daughter?" "She and Abby both signed it," I said. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he muttered, almost to himself, "They don't realize what they've started." That night I made 2 phone calls. One to my attorney and one to a private investigator I'd used years ago for work-related cases. If they wanted to play dirty, I was done playing fair. What they didn't expect was that I wasn't the same person who used to clean up their messes. They'd started a fire they couldn't control, and I wasn't planning to put it out this time. When the legal claim was dropped, I felt nothing. No relief, no anger. Just confirmation that they were exactly who I always suspected. Entitled, manipulative, and incapable of facing the truth unless it cornered them. The withdrawal notice came in quietly. One line from their lawyer. The claim is being withdrawn without prejudice. No explanation, no apology. After weeks of trying to paint me as the thief, they just walked away like it hadn't happened. I forwarded the message to my attorney with one sentence. Let it die. I didn't want to drag it out. Not in court, not in the media, not even in conversation. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. They'd exposed themselves just by trying. Dad called that night. He sounded exhausted. I talked to your mother, he said. She said she made a mistake. I didn't answer. I just let him keep going. She's saying Abby didn't mean to hurt you. That it wasn't supposed to go that far. They tried to poison me, I said. How far was it supposed to go? He didn't argue. He didn't even try to soften it. I think he finally understood that there was no version of this where I let it slide. I told her you're not coming back, he said. She didn't believe me. Of course not. She still thinks this is a phase. That was the problem. My mother didn't believe in consequences. Not for Abby. Not for herself. She thought if she waited long enough, cried loud enough, guilt hard enough, I'd fold. That's what always worked before. But this time I had nothing left to fold into. 2 days later my doorbell rang. I checked the security cam and saw her. Standing there with a plastic bouquet of flowers, her eyes red, dressed like she thought grief would help her case. She buzzed once. Then again. Then started knocking. I watched in silence from the top of the stairs. She knocked for almost 10 minutes. I never went down. I never said a word. Eventually she left the flowers on the mat and walked away, glancing back like she expected me to stop her. I didn't. That night I took the flowers still wrapped in that thin cellophane and dropped them in the dumpster behind the building. Then Abby tried a different route. She sent me a Venmo payment for $1. The note just said, "Can we talk?" I declined the payment and blocked her there too. They were running out of doors to knock on. But then the part one didn't expect. Dad came back to my place a few days later with something in his hands. A framed photo of the three of us. Thanksgiving maybe 10 years ago. We were all smiling. It looked like a family. He set it on the table and sat across from me. "I'm not here for them," he said. "I'm here for you." I didn't say anything. I waited. He pulled out a second envelope. This one was from him. A handwritten letter. Short, a page and a half. He wrote about how sorry he was for letting it all get this far. For standing by. For mistaking silence for neutrality. He admitted he didn't protect me when he should have. That he saw how they treated me and chose to ignore it because it was easier. "I failed you," he said. "But I don't want to keep failing you now." That was the first time I cried in weeks. Not loud. Not messy. Just quiet, steady tears that came without warning. Because for once, someone had told the truth. He asked if we could still have a relationship, just him and me. I said yes. With conditions. No updates from Mom. No mentions of Abby. No attempts to play peacemaker. He agreed. Now he visits twice a month. We go out for lunch, sometimes just sit at the park. He never brings them up. And I never ask. That's the rule. One time he did slip. He asked gently, "Do you think you'll ever talk to them again?" I looked him in the eye and said, "That door is welded shut." He nodded and didn't bring it up again. I don't miss them. Thought I would. I thought some part of me would ache for the people who raised me. But the truth is, I think I was mourning them for years before this ever happened. The version of Mom I wanted to believe in. The version of Abby I used to protect. But now, there's nothing left to grieve. Only room to breathe. People love to say things like, "You'll regret cutting them off one day." Or "Family's all you have in the end." They don't say it with bad intentions. They're just repeating what they've been told. What they were raised to believe. But the truth is, sometimes cutting people off isn't a loss. Sometimes it's the first time you can actually breathe. I didn't regret it. Not after Thanksgiving. Not after the champagne. Not after the hospital. Not after the legal threats. And not now. What I felt wasn't regret. It was disgust. Not the kind that fades with time. The kind that lives under your skin. The kind that doesn't go away just because they say, "I didn't mean it." Because meaning it or not doesn't undo it. Some things can't be undone. Some things shouldn't be. After the lawsuit fell apart, they went quiet. I know they thought I'd reach out eventually. I always did before. I was the one who called after the arguments. The one who showed up when nobody else did. I bought the gifts. Paid the bills. Took the blame. That was my job in the family, the fixer. And when I finally stopped playing it, they didn't know what to do. Abby tried one more time. She created a new Instagram account and sent me a message. A single sentence. If you knew how hard things are for us now, maybe you'd understand. I didn't answer. I just blocked it. What do you even say to something like that? I do understand. That's the problem. I understand too well. She's struggling now because the card she spent her 20s living off of was mine. She never had to work a real job because I paid for her classes, her rent, her everything. She never learned how to budget, how to problem solve, how to be independent. And now that the ATM is gone, she's spiraling. As for my mother, she's still playing victim. Dad told me she started telling the extended family that I cut her out over a silly misunderstanding. When one of my aunts reached out to ask if we could talk, I said no. No explanation. Just no. I don't need to justify protecting myself. Dad respected that. He's the only one who ever has. He still comes around, just him, and he never pushes. We talk about books, about work, about anything but them. He brings groceries sometimes, says he just wants to do something small for me. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's just love. I accept it. Not because I need it, but because I know he means it. One afternoon I asked him a question I'd been holding on to. When did you know it had gone too far? He looked at me for a long time before answering. When I saw her hand you that champagne glass, he said. And I did nothing. That hit harder than I expected. Not because I needed his guilt, I didn't, but because for the first time someone acknowledged it. That moment. That choice. He saw it. And he knew. I didn't tell him this, but sometimes I still remember the exact second the drink hit my stomach. How it turned warm, then sharp, then wrong. The way the room tilted. The sound of my glass hitting the floor. The silence that followed. And then the ambulance lights, cold and distant. You don't forget moments like that. People say, you should forgive for your own peace. But what they don't understand is, I already have peace. Because I didn't forgive. Forgiveness for me would mean reopening a door that needs to stay sealed. It would mean pretending that what they did was just a mistake when it was a choice. A series of choices. Meant to humiliate, to control, to punish. They wanted to make me small again. To remind me that I was, in their eyes, just a wallet with feelings they didn't have to respect. But I didn't stay small. I walked away. I changed the locks, changed my will, changed my emergency contacts. I cleared out every trace of them from my accounts, my passwords, my life. I removed Mom and Abby as beneficiaries. Reassigned power of attorney to a trusted friend. People don't realize how many ways family can hurt you until you leave your name sitting where it shouldn't be. I have boundaries now. Real ones. Ones with teeth. And the strangest thing is, it's not lonely. I thought it would be. I thought walking away from family would feel like floating out into space. But instead it felt like stepping outside a burning house. The air might be cold, but at least it's clean. I don't wish them well. That's another thing people get wrong. You're not required to wish people well after they try to destroy you. I don't wish them harm, but I don't wish them happiness either. I just don't care. They are strangers with familiar faces. So, I'm not healing so I can go back to them. I'm healing so I can stay away. The story ended a long time ago. And I don't need a reunion. I just needed an exit. Now I have one.